on KUHS Denver, my favorite radio station. How are you out there? I know life has been a little odd, but today you are here with me and my amazing guest, I'll introduce her in a minute, to be ignited and inspired. So take a deep breath and leave everything else behind you for an hour and just stay with me, because you know this is an inspiring show. For those of you who don't know me, and of course you know me, right? But for those of you who don't, I have this regular show every other Thursday. You've also encountered me once a month on Monday on the Crystal Ball Hour, which we will be doing also next week, Monday at 2:30, for free live channeled readings. Just so you know, you can sign in there. I want to let you know that this year I'm sponsoring my show, myself, and if you want to reach out to me, you can find me at elisarobin.com. Robin is spelled with a Y. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find. And just so you remember, what is this show about? It is about igniting a renaissance of spirit within you. I have to tell you that I adore being on the radio, and I love being here. But this show is for you. It's not for me. And because of that, what I want you to do is feel that at the end of this show, you have other questions you're ready to ask yourself, things you're ready to explore, ways that you feel like maybe you're ready to change your life. And my guest today is going to help. Before I introduce her, I do want to remind you that, yes, you still can get my book, The Way of the Well, on Amazon. It's a spiritual romance. I also want to remind you, those of you who've been sweet enough to go to my website and read chapter 1 of my second novel, Dark Fire. There's a sexy vampire in it, so you might want to check it out. That if you read chapter 1 and you let me know, give me some feedback, some comments on it, I'll send you chapter 2. You can just go to my website and find it, and then you can message me through there. That should probably be enough chatter. Here's what I want to do. As you know, I bring guests on who've inspired me, who've ignited something within me, so that when I bring someone on, I'm having a conversation that includes you, and hopefully you feel the same fire I feel when I'm talking with them. This guest, I discovered her through her podcast and her blog, and here's what I love about her. She has a great deal of honesty that she shares about the way we choose our journey. She talks about sort of the messiness of surrender and freeing our inner power and our need to focus on our passion and our purpose. She rejects the idea that we can all get there on the short road, right? That there's a quick and easy way. She rejects that. And I love that, because we get sold that so many times, and then we feel guilty, right? I took the shortcut, I didn't get there. What happened? This is a woman who truly knows about tacking upwind. So this is Shari Teigman. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I was listening to you describe me, so thank you for reminding me of the things that I believe. Sometimes in the midst of it, it's not always to remember your own beliefs, so I needed that reminder sometimes too. All very human.
So here's what I want to start with. Before, we're going to do it a few times during the show. Tell people how to find you, because they're all going to want to find you. So let's just start with that.
I love that. So you can find me at my website, is the easiest place. ShariTeigman.com. You can find me over on Facebook. My business page is Shari Teigman 1 on Facebook, takes you to my business page. Or on Instagram, I am at, guess what, Shari Teigman.
And just so you know, I'm monitoring Facebook on the Dr. Elisa Show and on KUHS Denver. And so if you want to put a message in there, as we're talking, we'll be able to possibly answer. So Shari, do me a favor. Tell me about this journey. You have found a way to ignite a renaissance in others, to keep others inspired. So can you just sort of, and your tag is being a maverick.
Yes, sir.
So can you sort of talk to me about how that journey and how you got there?
I sure can. So, ironically, I'd love to say it was I read a book and I felt no pain and I just magically had a dream in the middle of the night and it just came to me. But no, that's not how this played out. So, this whole Renaissance Maverick movement has come honestly from my own journey over the past 12 years. I um, grew up in a modern Orthodox Jewish community right outside of New York City. I was living a very lovely, beautiful Stepford wife life. I have two beautiful children, lived in the same town that I grew up in. So it's not some rags to riches story. It just wasn't a life that was working for me. And I went through a very challenging divorce, which made me need to look at a lot of areas of my life and decide what I wanted and what I didn't want. And these roads, when we have our dark night of the souls and we understand where we want to go, generally don't come because a bird lands on our shoulder and tells us. We have to manually remove what isn't working for us, and that's where the road starts. It can be scary and confusing. We can wonder what the hell we're doing in the first place. Why do I want what other people are happy with? Why can't I just be complacent and satisfied? And our souls come and call us for different things, and it doesn't make sense till you look back. So I've been on this journey for the past 12 years. After my divorce, I was a single mom, still am, raising two little boys. Now they're grown and beautiful and big. Still raising them in my head, but they're raising themselves more and more beautifully. And I needed to explore what I wanted once I figured out what I didn't want. And that was a journey I didn't understand how to go on. And I fell down the rabbit hole of personal development. I did a year-long coach training and yoga teacher training. I was body, mind. I said, I know everything that I don't want, and that's all I know. I look around the world and I can say yes, no, but I couldn't say yes yet. I wanted to, and I knew I didn't want to feel trapped again. And for me, the whole maverick idea, I teach a lot about archetypes, because when we're in those places of living lives, running businesses, feeling disconnected from ourselves, we only know how to do what we know how to do. So when we can embrace an archetype of ourselves, a superhero, another version of ourselves, then we can step out of what we currently see and understand and move into our future self and reverse engineer the plan. So for me, Maverick was that archetype. I'm rebellious by nature, but it's not this rebel against someone says yes and I have to say no. I agree with a lot of the world, what the world has, and I disagree with a lot of it, and it wasn't about being right. It was about forging my own road. And this maverick thing is really, it doesn't have to be something you're extroverted, you're loud, you want a big following, you want to be seen. It's that own internal driver that guides you to prioritize, that guides you to allow your intuition to speak to you, that guides you to your rights and wrongs, to your yeses and nos, regardless of what the world in front of you is telling you should be doing, because how many people, you live with lots as well, hundreds and thousands between the two of us, live an entire life and then look back and say, but I didn't know anything else was possible. So we have to make that possibility for ourselves and then go live it rather than it gets shown. It's wonderful when it does get shown, but we don't know how to step into it. It's those people who win a lottery and then lose it. You aren't the container yet. So the journey to maverickhood is really the most fun. I don't want to ever arrive somewhere. It's why, as you said, I'm so vulnerable and open, because I'm still learning on the go here.
That you just said so much, and I've got to dig in.
I usually do.
Well, I love that. And you and I, when we've had our personal conversation before the show, we talked about, I'm just going to share this little piece of you, that we're both Aquarian women, and that the sign of Aquarius is the sign of the rebel. But we're not rebelling against, right, something else. It's just we don't see the world the same way. And that sense of being a maverick that you're talking about is really about discovering myself, right? Living my power, walking in my power without apology. Yeah. To me, that's really what you're talking about, right? Yeah. That's what because I want you to dig a little deeper into what that maverick is.
Yeah. So you just hit the nail on the head. So many people live their lives, because we're wired like this as human beings. We crave belonging. We are pack animals. As much as even we independent Aquarian souls like to pretend we're not, we still like to belong, even if we choose to leave the party early. We want to know we're invited. We may just not want to go. So when we don't know who we are, the only way we course correct and find our way is by comparing ourselves to everyone else. And we get into tinier and tinier spaces, using less and less of what's divinely given to us and just what will keep us safe. And that is not only a bad habit and tiring, but it also limits our peripheral view. So this maverick idea is something to open up the 3D view. Notice other people's variations on things. There are times mavericks march alone, and there are lots of times we walk together. You're creating new communities, you're creating new worlds. You are understanding that you are a tiny drop in a bigger picture, and your impact can be part of someone else's. So it's also taking a personal responsibility to say, I want to be part of the change in the world. I don't want to walk around telling everyone what's wrong with it all the time. That energy is so wasted, and we think it's powerful, especially in our crazy world of politics and change and keyboard warriors. The amount of energy people waste on division and fighting with each other, rather than if we all united and say we're more alike than we are different, but your differences inspire me. I take your spark and I run with it, then I hand it to someone else. I feel like if we could all own our individuality, we wouldn't be trying to fit in so much and then feel so lost when we're in the center of the room trying to be like everybody else.
That is so Aquarian, where you're like, no, we're trying to fit in, which is why we feel lost. And if we didn't try to fit in, then we actually feel like we fit in, because, right? I mean, it is that interesting juxtaposition of the different parts of ourselves, right? Of the
Yes.
of our inner dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and we're only triggered from the outside when something's tapping on our shoulder. Trust
Yes.
me, none of it would bother you if you knew who you were,
That's
because
right.
you wouldn't be in comparison mode.
That's right. So I love this stuff. So you just said something I'm just going to repeat because I loved it. Right now we are in a world of keyboard warriors, that we spend so much time angrily typing out something, and as opposed to, I can change the world by changing myself. And so I think that's what I'll do. I think I'll change myself and embrace who I am, and maybe not live in fear. So thank you. I think that was brilliant. Where I want to go is this notion of archetypes, because I think you and I know what we're talking about. We've mentioned Joseph Campbell with that, but let's for everybody listening, when you talk about archetypes, just expand on that for me.
Sure, absolutely. So the idea of archetypes started with Carl Jung, who was a psychiatrist, I believe, in the 1950s, and his is much more a psychological movement, a whole Jungian philosophy. But the essence of it is, within all of us, we have other parts of ourselves, whether they're an exaggerated characteristic of us, a part of us that we can tap into. I like to use it as a superhero. The easiest example I can give from modern times is Beyonce, the very popular pop star, has a version, her alter ego is called Sasha Fierce. Beyonce's a tired mom. She probably wants to be in sweats on her sofa eating chocolates while her kids are playing. But the version of her who gets on stage and blows the world away is Sasha Fierce. She steps into all of the characteristics bundled into one of her archetype of Sasha Fierce, who is fierce, who is driven, who changes worlds, who moves mountains, who inspires women, while the regular person can't carry that all the time. How would you step off stage and playing in front of millions of people and feel normal when you have to go on a school run to pick up your kid? So our brains are wired for regularity. I'd love to say that we're evolved human beings. We are primal animals. We like safety. We don't like change. We don't like big noises. We like to know where our food's coming from. We can create fun things from that place. So if you can internalize, almost like the Walter Mitty movie, what would the exaggerated version of you be? If you had no fear, what would it be? So the examples, Maverick is one of them. Right. During my divorce, I used the archetype of the wild woman. I went on Pinterest and I was like, made this beautiful board of a woman who runs with wolves, with wild hair and dresses. Because little old me was petrified to get out of the car and walk into that courtroom again and again. But when I captured myself and anchored myself, I wore certain jewelry, I had a playlist of music, I got my mind into a different flow state. I could do things that regular Shari in safe mode could not accomplish. So I know it sounds like I'm asking everyone to create split personalities. We're not. We're amplifying aspects of us that are already in there with that muscle that hasn't been exercised. So exercise your imagination. Find, maybe you're the sage, you're the teacher, you're the wise man. You are wanting to be an architect and build new things. You're a problem solver and, a detective. This doesn't have to be a loud version. It could be how your beautiful brain works that you just slop off as, oh, everyone can do it. Own where your magic is, own where your strength is, turn that up, and you don't have to work as hard to be a person.
So you realize you could write an entire book about that, right?
I could probably write 5.
Yeah, but just that little bit you just said, I think that's at least a book, right? You could do that.
Yes.
So I love that idea because it's resonating. So I have had a career as a geologist. I've had a career as an academic dean, a very long career, and then there's me, right? That give me a mic, and I'm an introvert. Give me a mic and put me in front of people, and this whole other person shows up, and I have learned to trust that she will, that she just shows up, right? I've never actually thought of it in those terms, but I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that I do this, and some people have said, oh my gosh, you're so fearless, but when, yes, I'd love to be home in the evening in sweats, right, a glass of wine, a good book, and that I don't need a crowd. I never do, but I come alive. So it's interesting how those archetypes work. Something that Joseph Campbell said that I'd love to have you expand on, because this is great stuff. He talked about you can't go into the forest. So let me make those connections, excuse me. Carl Jung studied under Freud. He got kicked out when he started this whole archetype thing.
He was a maverick.
He was a maverick. He and Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, were dear, dear friends. And then Joseph Campbell mentored George Lucas. And that's where we got the hero's journey, which is now like every other movie you see is the hero's journey, right? There's lots of other motifs, but that's the one that Hollywood has grabbed, which is different than their heroine's journey. But Joseph Campbell talked about going into the forest. If we go into the forest on a path, then we are on somebody else's road. So it is kind of the road less traveled, but on some level, we have to go in on the road not built. Does that resonate with the work you do?
It completely resonates. And it's, when we say, even as you said it, my Maverick alarm goes off, it's the road less traveled, but if we're looking where it's traveled and it's not traveled, then all we're doing is trying to rebel against what is. I don't care if it's been traveled, it's how I travel. I go in on my way, so there may be footprints on part of it, and then I turn off. When we are so focused on being different, on standing out, on defining ourselves, we miss our own magic because it's about about innovation, not recreation. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Personally, financially, career-wise, relationship-wise, it's capturing your parts and just changing what works for you better. So if you walk into that forest and you have a destination that's filled with curiosity and adventure and fun, guess where your eyes are? Up, not on whose path is where. So there's like that next step of, what if you didn't care where everyone else went? And maybe the serendipity would bring you to meet magical people, would bring you a place you hadn't planned on going, because you're following where your heart wants to go, where your soul takes you, and the story's being written as you go.
So on some level, the what we do is not what matters. It's the how we do.
Absolutely.
So I know that I've told clients that you can be anything, pick anything. It's how you are that. Be a dentist or be an artist. Does it matter? It doesn't call to you. But you can be an artistic dentist. You can be an artist who never produces because you're not walking your path. So it sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Yes, and what's interesting here is I call this finding the passion crumbs. So people will come to me, as I was 12 years ago, I'll never forget it. I didn't know who I was, I didn't know what I wanted. So the first path, when someone's like, but I don't know, can you give me a blueprint? I want the magic that you have. Hand me your kryptonite, can I borrow some of it? I want to be just like you. And I say to people all the time, trust me, you don't want to be just like me because you have to take all of my dark with my light. it's probably easier in your own mind. This is not an easy place to be. But in that, we have passion crumbs that since the day you were born, you have themes that play out in your life. So that dentist slash artist, what are their passion crumbs going backwards? What were you known for? What are the things that light you up? When you hear a song, what memories are triggered? What are the places you are passionate about? What are the movements and causes that make you turn the television louder? What book in the bookstore will grab you, even if it's something no one would ever think you would read? I like to teach people how to ride their own edge, because there you have a better view. So on the edge, oh, well, I always like this, this, and this, and suddenly they find out their passion is about connection and helping and orchestrating. Well, look what you did. In every career, you still used all of your you-ness in different variations and how you did it. There could have been a school administrator who had the same resume as you, did it entirely differently. We bring our magic to anything we do. There are garbage men who are so passionate and in love with what they do, and you have CEOs who hang themselves out of desperation because they feel so lost. So this is not what I call a muggle regular life pathway. I have this, I'm given this, I get this package for my soul comes down to earth, and I have this much money. It's your soul journey. It's where the contracts lie. It's where your lessons are. So the outside doesn't matter. It's what you do with your insides for the outside that makes it fun and alive and actually shows itself as we go.
You and I have these such interesting overlaps. When I do astrology for people, when I do my kind of work and one-on-one with people, we look at what is your soul craving, and it's in your chart, right? So just like you said, you came here with a soul that was dropping crumbs so that you'd pay attention, right? And you don't have to look to somebody else. Look to yourself. And yet we're in a world where we're fascinated and addicted to other people's success and other people's paths. Does that have something to do with the spiritual bypassing you talk about?
Absolutely. You and I, you know I love this topic.
Yes, I do.
It's that false toxic positivity. It's the spiritual bypassing. Many of my clients are based in the UK, and they don't have as much of it as Americans do. There's this, we're supposed to be fine all the time. It's that, or we're supposed to be delving into uncovering ourselves. It's like a rite of passage, like someone's going to give you a sticker if you tore your heart open or if you're always smiling, and neither are real. We're not wired for it. So this comes when we try to find those shortcuts, when we want to use someone else's pathway. Now, neither of us, I'm going to speak for you, Elise, neither of us are saying that we have to reinvent. We said that. We can model what inspires us. We can find clues in the world outside of us of what we want and what we don't want. But at the end of the day, when you are laying in your bed, it is you, your heart and soul alone that will guide you to things. So when we sign up for someone else's road because it looks like they know a secret we don't know, the only secret we learn is that we moved further away from ourselves and have more work to do to come home. So it is that spiritual bypassing, like, I'll tick a box that said, I felt pain. That was a half an hour of my dark night of the soul. Are we there yet? Do I get my lollipop and my gold sticker? Can I be fine now? I mean, I'd love to say yes, but I haven't found it. Someone out here listening has found it. Please split the jelly bean with us, because we'll be very happy to swallow it.
And I have to add that, so it's lovely when you give us this perspective from the outside world looking in. Like, you in America, you're obsessed with, and I think sometimes that obsession becomes a form of spiritual narcissism. I'm making sure I'm always happy. I'm making sure I'm always calm, and I'm gaining.
And I'm making sure everyone's watching me be happy and calm, because if it's not on social media, it didn't happen.
Right. and if I'm spiritual, it must mean that I'm only having spiritual conversations. I never have a bad day. I always can say, this is making me anxious, and I shall meditate through it. I have a Scorpio rising. I don't meditate through my anxiety, right?
That's not where the anger comes out.
That's not where it comes out. Now, I'm more than willing to own it. But is there some way we can also, what advice do we have, especially what advice do you have, around people who feel trapped in the outside judgment, that need to continue in that spiritual bypass?
Great question. So I'm going to define it like this, which is going to sting, but I have to explain why this is dangerous before I give solutions, because it looks like the easier road. What's dangerous about it is if you continue on this split spiritual bypass, you are misaligning with what the point of being here is, and your messages are going to be louder, your lessons are going to be louder, you're going to move further away from yourself and have a harder time coming home to what you're really here to do. Now, I understand, and I've been there, don't think I haven't done it. I've done everything I teach, probably a few times just to check. It looks like it would be easier. It looks exciting because we can know something and not live it. So we all have the same pile of books on our night tables. We all know the words to say. We all can drink the green juice and roll out our yoga mat. The rage inside will always win. It will, that misalignment will always knock you over. That inner critic is going to demolish any of your beautiful affirmations you're trying, any of the lovely mantras that other people say, any of the yoga chants that you don't understand what the hell you're saying, but you think you're supposed to, so you kind of look around and be like, okay, they don't look angry, I'm going to try it. So I actually saw someone does angry yoga. I'm like, that's my kind of yoga. My answer to this is, it's the and/or problem. We think we're supposed to be one or the other, and we're not. We're born as dichotomies. We have everything in the universe inside of us. So your light will highlight your dark. Your dark will unearth your light. On repeat, back and forth. What triggers you helps you grow. What doesn't trigger you isn't your lesson. You don't have to sit in it. And we evolve as we go. So things that wouldn't have bothered me 5 years ago drive me crazy now because I wasn't up to this level of evolution. So I'd love to tell you get a 10-card punch, and on the 10th one you get change for free, but it is the same process again and again. We have to unearth ourselves. We have to decide in the moment which one of us we want to be, and acknowledge that in every single moment we are both. I am both love and light, and I am also a very sweary New Yorker. And they both come from the same passion. They both come from the same place of desiring change in the world. I am both extroverted and introverted. I'm tired and I'm excited. I'm terrified and I'm driven. If I leave one side out, I don't have the other side that I'm pushing and pretend.
That really is brilliant. It pulls us away from the notion that our bodies are dirty and we should live in an ethereal plane. It pulls us away from the notion that light is always good, and dark is always bad.
Those are rooms I have to leave. I don't know about you, but I'm the snarky one in the back snorting when everyone's supposed to hug each other and say namaste. Like, there's a time and a place for it, and if you're not feeling it, don't pretend because you aren't fooling anybody.
Well, and the dark, and in fact this second novel I've just finished is all about the dark, the women who are the dark that allow the light to shine, and how so much healing for women happens in our inner dark place. Dark, not negative, not bad, but in that pool of wisdom, which, I don't know about you, but I meditate better when the lights are down a little bit. I
have never learned any of my lessons sitting calmly watching life pass by. I just don't. Those people who do, God bless them. That's amazing. I'm not wired like that. I am a feeler. I am an emotionally driven. I've got to taste and touch everything that there is just to check. And that's when I know when something belongs to me. So the road is messy.
It is messy. So you add something. So let's do this first. If you are just tuning in, and I'm sorry you missed a great first half hour, this is the Dr. Elisa show on KUHS Denver, the stream, and you are listening to my amazing guest, Shari Teigman. You can find her at, Shari, join in. Where can they find you?
Sure, my website, ShariTeigman.com, on Facebook and Instagram at Shari Teigman.
Great. You can find me at ElisaRobin.com and on Facebook at Elisa Robin. You notice how tricky that is? We just used our names, so we're really easy to find.
It's so that we can remember. We're Aquarians. We do not need complications.
Oh my gosh, I do not need, having as many passwords as I have is challenging.
Well, I change them daily, so it's like a new adventure every day.
That's right.
What's your password? I have no idea. What should it be? And then they say, you used that one already. I'm like, I did?
I did? How could that be? So this is why you and I are so connected, because we do all of this stuff, right? You move on from the philosophical, which we've been kind of doing, to something you also call, I think, woo-do? Is that what you call it?
I do. Woo and do.
Woo and do.
Emotion. Yes.
All right, so talk to us about woo and do.
So here's the thing. We have the hustler crowd of the go-getters who work 24 hours a day proudly and feel their movement and motion in the world, and it's beautiful to watch, and it makes me tired. Mm-hmm. And then we have the woo crowd, which is the spiritual side, who have feathers in their hair, and they're soft and flowy and surrounded by crystals, and they manifest things, and they wait to receive, and they sit in their feminine energy, and it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. To me, for the road I've been on and all of the people I work with, I don't believe in balance, but I truly believe we need both. We need the action taking and we need the state. We need to decide emotionally and energetically and spiritually, and then we have to pull that down and do our part for the universe to meet us halfway. We cannot sit waiting for something to happen, and we also can't only create from our logical go-getter brain, because we don't know how to do more than we know how to do. So what I really like to help people do in whatever category they're trying to change, and this whole Maverick movement has 5 areas. So we're talking self, relationships, well-being, creativity, and business. This is across the board. So think like the Olympic circles. They work together and they work separately. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So when we try to avoid ourselves in one area, it will leak over in other areas. We don't get to compartmentalize. I've tried it, I have the badge, don't do it. So this woo and do is really reminding us that we have to be stewards of our own life, while also surrendering part of it to the serendipity and magic of what it means to be a spiritual being who's having a human life down here. So I can want what I want, but if I'm not willing to do the work, that's part of my journey, is getting myself uncomfortable, being able to work through my own blocks in order to help other people, to be able to remember to show up even when I don't want to push through my own resistance and sometimes surrender to my own resistance. So I, by nature, push too hard. One of the lessons that I'm working on very deeply is receiving an active surrender. And it ain't pretty. It's very messy and it's very ugly, and it's so necessary, because I can get really self-important when I don't mean to and think that I'm the one in control. And we all know how well that goes when you send that message to you first.
Right. That is fascinating. That, I mean, I have that same struggle, that there's the woo side where people will say to me, you're an amazing manifester. Inside, I know that there was a door just cracked open and I kicked it. And I ran through, right? And I applied for a job.
You hide the axe behind your back.
Right.
Thank you. Aren't I, though?
And I applied for a job that I didn't know how to do, but I knew there was a book on a shelf somewhere that would tell me how, and I'm really good at that kind of stuff. So I knew I could read the book and do the job. And that's, I guess, how I manifest, because I'm doing what I'm learning, much like you. And again, it's kind of an Aquarian trait if you're out there listening. That radical independence that we have, that we almost feel guilty. Like, oh my God, am I leaning on you too much? I just asked a friend that this morning, and I needed a reference to somebody to do something in the house. And I got a reference. And I felt like that was too much to ask, almost, right? So I have my woo side, which is my astrology. I'm actually a channeler, which is sort of another weird thing. But I'm wired to do. Right?
And that fierce independence.
Yes.
And I don't need anyone. And that's that dance that we have to figure out. There's a time for it.
Yes.
Absolutely is a time for it. But we also need to know how to understand what our bodies need, what our energies need, what we're ready for in that moment, why we're supposed to surrender when we surrender, when it's time to take inspired action. And that is the dance that gets you to actually trust yourself and the universe much more, because you're in communication. You're not deciding, I'm only doing this and someone else will take care of the rest. It doesn't work.
I know.
Or I'll take care of the rest and I'm not letting any movement in that.
Right.
Neither work.
And I know that you work with men and women, but do you have a sense that women have a more difficult time that are programming? Or is it just different? Are men programmed one way?
It's very interesting. I find different issues with the same thing. So Men can actually receive more, I found with my clients, in some ways because they tell themselves less stories. So if a man feels safe about a process and sees a pathway to success, and you tell him, not that I would, but I'm just using this as an example, from a binary perspective, I need you to stand on your head with one leg on the wall for an hour every day and you're going to get everything you want. They're like, cool, I trust you.
Okay.
As long as I build trust, game on. Well, maybe I can stand for 2 hours because you challenged me.
Right.
We're women, self-included, so I'm not battering you women. I have to tell 90 stories. I once stood on my head and my grandmother didn't like it, and then I lost my red shoe. Red shoe means this to me. Maybe it's a spiritual sign. Hold on, let me go look on Louise Hay's website. What's that spirit animal mean who just drove by me? I saw 11:11 on the clock. We like to fortify everything with more stories because it makes us feel like we have more meaning and matter in the world. Men need less of that. They need more course correction and a lot of trust in themselves that accepting and receiving is something that's manly and allowed to happen. So the reason I work with both is because honestly I find it fun to get to play in both energy spaces. And a lot of my female clients are extremely masculine, and a lot of my male clients are the most intuitive and manifesty kind of men, and they don't even know they're doing it. They're just in flow. They're in charge of their flow.
That's an amazing insight. It really is to our differences. And I think it opens up the door for everyone listening, male or female, and maybe you react the opposite way. You might be a guy who has that more of, right? Because it's not every guy and every woman, but there's tendencies.
Absolutely. And we all have both inside of us.
We all have both.
You know, when I get my feet tangled, I'm leaning too hard on my masculine. I'm
Right.
back in control again.
Right.
And to wrangle that out of my own hands is the hardest thing in the world.
Right. Though did you just finish, or do you still have a free workshop, 1 hour workshop running every single day on Facebook? Is that?
Yes, so today was workshop 4, tomorrow's the last one, but they're up and I'm going to put them in a playlist. They're live,
Right.
and they will stay up on my wall, just about helping us untangle why we get stuck, how to set goals in a different way, why creativity may be holding you back. Today I taught all about, what did I teach about? Unstoppable self-belief. It was an hour ago, I don't remember anymore. So what happens when you channel the information, it's gone.
It's gone.
Unstoppable self-belief, and tomorrow's all about solving that procrastination puzzle, because at the end of the day, no matter how woo you want to be, we still need practical reasons and practical ways to move from pain to pleasure. I want a lot of different things in my life. I don't like change. I love growth. Change scares me. Growth doesn't. Mm-hmm. So I need to find ways that I could trust my journey. Mm-hmm. I'd love to be one of those quantum leapy people. I'm not there yet. Given where I come from, my own personal experiences, I crave a lot of safety and security. And in that, I dance between how fast does the Maverick go and how careful does Sherry make sure the floor is so no mines blow up under my feet.
I often don't notice the mine until I've stepped on it. It blew up.
Noted. Me too.
Yeah, right.
Me
it
too.
just doesn't happen. Oh my gosh. So one of the other things you talk about, one of the other reasons I like your work, let me do it this way, is you promise success. Well, you don't actually promise, but you say, I'm going to work with you towards success, but you're not talking money. You're talking something very, very different. That is finding yourself and finding that inner maverick and having, almost being like a mediator between the different parts of myself. So the success has a very different definition. Is there a way you can define that a little better? Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Great question, and it's something that people who come to me for change struggle with, because you beautifully said it, I won't promise change. It's from where someone is to where someone wants to go. What people don't realize is the destination they set is the only thing they can see from where they are. So the way I describe this is where I see somebody, because I can see their potential intuitively, I'm at the waterfall. They're still in the parking lot, figuring out which sneakers to hike in. Did I take a water bottle? Do I have a protein bar? Where are my keys? I put my sunglasses somewhere. I'm asking them to take a leap that's not possible. So they don't know what's further along the road, and they're saying, I want success that looks like X. If I promise them that success that looks like X, they miss everything good that will happen. Like I said, it's about the journey you go on and about changing what your beliefs are as you go. So if I take someone from where they want to go, from where they are to where they think they want to go, I'm actually enabling them staying stuck because I'm helping them hold those blinders on. So I make a lot of people extremely uncomfortable because it's almost like I spin them around to play pin the tail on a donkey. I don't want to hear your beautiful goals that you don't know how to reach. I don't want to hear about who you one day want to be. I want to know what it feels like now. I want to know what emotions and feelings you're craving, because it's never about the money. It's never about the numbers. It's never about the on paper success. Are you craving happiness? What would happiness look like now before you have the results? Are you craving safety? Is that what all this money talk is about? Are you looking for connection? Are you looking for power? I don't judge what it is. It's not my road. I have enough trouble figuring out my own as it actively moves and changes in front of my eyes. So we can only follow the passion crumbs forward as well, not only backwards, by trusting ourselves to say, I know what direction I'm going in, and I'm willing to stay open to what the process brings up for me. Because along the process, old stories pop up and we heal them. New ideas come up and we allow and listen to them. We become more active learners as we get to see a peripheral vision in front of you that you wouldn't see if you only defined, I'm going over here. Well, everything may be this way, and I'm leading you this way, and you actually really want to go here. So what I help people do is get very uncomfortable in the discomfort of not knowing how to define it and grab it for themselves. So when someone can get uncomfortable about releasing what they think it looks like, all of a sudden they find out who they are. All of a sudden they're willing to look at their beliefs. Then they can start to play in the land of possibility. Then they find out where their internal and external stories don't match. Now we're dealing with new Play-Doh. Now we can create much more than they ever dreamed because we put down and unpacked everything they thought defined them.
So this is why your work, I think, is so timely now. Not that it hasn't been before, but 2020 was a year where so many of us had to sort of dig in. And for some of us, we looked inward and did work, what came up. For many, many people, it was simply about staying safe. For most people, it was probably a combination. For many people, it was loudly screaming my beliefs, even if whatever that is, right? Crystals are better than medicine. It doesn't matter what the message was, that we held on tightly in a form of safety. And we shifted into a fixed mindset and abandoned any notion of a growth, not change, but a growth mindset. What you're talking about is shaking people up in a way that helps them remember that we are wired for growth. We are wired to expand. And that it sounds to me like what you're saying is that perhaps the goals we set were not the goals we wanted. They were the goals that we were taught, so that the things sometimes we do are not wired into our DNA. They're the things that we have learned we're supposed to do, right? As Aquarians, you and I didn't like what we learned we were supposed to do. That's one of the bright sides, or the dark sides, depending how you look at it, of Aquarius, right? That inner rebel. What you're hoping to have people find is that everyone has a piece of that in them. So am I saying that correctly?
You said it perfectly, because until we tap back into our own internal GPS of figuring out, as long as I have a destination, I'm safe. As long as I feel what I want to feel, I know that I'm headed in the right direction. How many people ask me and you, I have no doubt, but how am I going to know when I get there? Mm-hmm. How do I know? I have so many clients who have had financial success, incredible launches in their business, sold public companies, and then they feel absolutely nothing because it was so external that they got everything they wanted on paper, and then they have to figure out, now what? It's all I know how to do is drive forward, and I got exactly what I always dreamed of, and now I am completely lost and empty. That's heartbreaking.
It is almost, people used to hit that, 65, they'd retire. And you found this in men. There was a period of time where men who'd done sort of big things in industry retired, went golfing, had a heart attack, died. because they couldn't deal with who am I now. We're seeing that much younger. I have clients who are having quarter life crises at 25, 30 because they've already done so much and they've been told they can do anything and they haven't taken any of that time to see how it feels. What do I want? And to your point, we evolved from prey creatures. We feel safer in a herd. So here's what the herd's doing. I guess that's what I like. Now I have to discover who I am. And we're seeing people, which is much better, do it at 25 and 30 as opposed to at 65 or 70.
Well, there's also, think about how quickly the world moves now.
Yes.
We are bombarded with information. At 25, I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old. Everything's in their hands. I was talking to my younger son, and I said, I feel like I'm 100. I'm 46. It's not old, but I said to my son, I don't know what we did when I was younger when we wanted to know a question. There was no Google. The encyclopedia that rested in my brother's room was like from 5 years ago, so maybe it didn't have the answer. I didn't really care enough to go look, to be honest. We asked simpler questions. We let life unfold in front of us. Now, our world at any age is so bombarded with information, we think if we see something that we understand it. So we don't bother with transformation, and then we feel empty because everything we want to know is right. I can Google it in 1 minute. There's no internal satisfaction or journey. It's like, oh, now I know the answer as to when the moon is blue or why birds do this. Oh, kid who wants a question. We don't have to make up an answer anymore. We go and Google it, but we've gotten very trained to just live on the surface of more education, more information, and never actually internalizing something. I want this, I don't want that. That belongs to me, that's a value of mine. We don't have ourselves in relation to the outer, very fast-moving world.
So besides your woo and do, you're also dealing with people who either choose feeling or choose, I don't want to say intellect or thinking, but sort of emotion versus mind. So if I just
Yes.
keep doing and thinking and learning, and then life's great, as opposed to, no, I need to sit and be empty, right? And another dichotomy.
Yes.
That,
So we actually have, there's a triad there. So
Okay.
I teach, this Maverick triad is what any business owner, I do it in reference to business, but it fits for life as well. There are three aspects of what we're all craving.
Okay.
If we ignore one, we're in trouble. If we ignore two, we're in trouble. If we try to do one at a time, we're in trouble. We have emotion, we have logic, and then we have creativity, which links the logic and emotion.
Okay.
So when we lean only to emotion, we blow like the wind to anything that's happening. There's a collective energy in the world, whether you're an energy person or not. You can feel frenetic panic in the air right now. I'm kind of glad we're all in the timeout at home, because if we were all out in the streets, it would be even worse right now. So we are emotionally driven, but that doesn't solve problems. That doesn't create forward movement. We get locked in our emotions. Now, logic is wonderful because that's where problem solving comes. That's where planning happens. But if we only use our logic, it's disconnected from us, and we get stuck in our clever brains solving problems up here that never relate to anything or anyone. So the creative process then brings in, where does logic meet emotion? Where do I internalize a process that works? Or where do my emotions then lead me to make the next decision, which would be a practical move towards what more of what I want to feel?
Okay. Clearly you're going to have to come back on the show, because we honestly have 4 more minutes, and I've not gotten through half the questions that you and I would have. So you're going to have to do this again.
My pleasure. Anytime.
But what I'd like to know is, what keeps you inspired?
I'm always very honest, but I'll be very honest.
Okay, be very honest.
I fear of a life of complacency, or a fear of me going back to who I was as a people pleaser, as an overgiver, and as a making sure everyone was okay before me, is something that terrifies me and motivates me, because it's a very slippery slope. I could head back there very easily. I'm a very dedicated mom. I'm dedicated to my parents. I care more about other people than I do myself. As a visionary, I like to see change. So if my own change is boring, I'm ready to go help everyone else, because it moves things. But I can lose myself and burn out very easily. So that scares me to be burnt out, and it scares me to be complacent. So I sit in a valley of, I won't let myself settle because of it. So the motivation to create the change I want in myself to then have more for the world is the thing that keeps me going.
Which is very Aquarian, can I just say that? And in fact, what I'd love to do, if I haven't mentioned it to you, is a thank you for being on the show. I'd love to gift you with some astrology time. Run your chart.
I would love that.
So we will chat offline about that, but it is something I like to gift my guests so
Thank
that
you.
I can give back because you've given us so much during the show. Again, would you rather people find you at your website?
I'm most active on my Facebook page, so I have a ton of free videos and content. If people are wanting to learn and explore, come introduce yourself on my page. Let me know that you heard us on the radio show. Come hang out there. I'm doing a live tomorrow at 9 a.m. Is it not? Yeah, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, so 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Again, all the replays are up. Right. Tag me, introduce yourself. I like to learn from everybody. So that's the most interactive place to play with me.
And what's
Instagram
the business?
As well.
What's the business Facebook site?
It is Shari Teigman 1. It's me in a red coat wearing sunglasses.
Okay. And then you're also on Instagram.
Yeah, and that's Shari Teigman, and I'm active on there as well, in stories on my feed. Don't be shy. I love new people. I don't bite, I promise.
So this has been an amazing, amazing time talking to you, so thank you. For everyone listening, can you believe it? I've got 2 minutes to sort of do a little bit of a wrap here. First, thank you for joining us. Definitely reach out to me, alisarobin.com, with any comments you have. Again, if you go to my website and read the first chapter of my book and send me some information about your thoughts, I will send you the second chapter. The second chapter is even better. I want you to tune in on the 18th at 2:30 Mountain Standard Time if you do want a free psychic reading using my crystal balls and my channeling and hear about astrology. That's where I do all of that stuff. Next week, January 24th, on this show, believe it or not, I'm going to be chatting with Tiffany Schlein, author of the book 24/6. She's this other amazing, amazing person, and please join me for that. And until then, please reach out to Shari, please reach out to me. Let us know your thoughts about this show. We love doing this, but as you could hear, we love doing it for you. That this, yes, we're having a grand time together, but we're having a grand time together in the hopes of inspiring something in you, of igniting something in you. And I know it's a scary time. So please, stay well, let your inner flame ignite and burn strong, and stay inspired. See you next time.